Hope is like the sun, which, as we journey toward it, casts a shadow of our burden behind us. Samuel smiles. Welcome to another episode of Journey to the Mic with yours truly, the one and only Mike Garcia. And I've said over and over that whenever we have certain interviews, when we have certain discussions, we've pretty much heard it all. We've heard it from another voice actor in terms of their journey. We heard it from a coach, a professional coach, two professional coaches, and I wanted to dive a little bit more behind the scenes. I wanted to, in a way, branch out. And what better way to have a special guest for this podcast episode in the form of writing? Because we all know writing is truly the backbone of everything, whether it comes to movies, films, and yes, even voiceover. Because let's face it, we need our scripts. We need something to read off in order to deliver our performance. So I am honored. I am privileged. I am happy to have one of the greatest people that I've ever met in my life. She is a professional stage actress, a singer, and also a former English teacher, but has her own writing business. So you may want to look her up if, you know what? No, when. You better look her up after this is done. Ladies and gentlemen, the twin sister of Gina Scarpa, Miss Mia Scarpa. Mia, how are you doing today?
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. That cracked me up. If you have listeners who know my sister, Gina Scarpa, then you know, although we are not really twins, we sort of have like the twin power. And we also, we look a lot alike and have some similar personality traits, but I do think we have that like weird telepathic twin power.
And I forgot, is it you that's the oldest or is she the oldest?
Gina's older than me by about a little more than 3 years, I think. Is it 4? I don't know. Gina's older than me. Gina's older. But I think our entire lives, even when we were pretty young, people thought I was older. You know, one way that we differ in our personalities is Gina is more naturally humorous than I am. I have to like work at being funny. And anything funny about me, I've really just copied from her probably. And I'm very regimented and organized. And so I think people read that as maybe me being older because I was a little more, I don't know, something serious maybe. And she was more fun. And now I think we're both fun though.
No, you definitely are. And especially since a lot of people like to equate you from her. But this is why I wanted you to share your side of the story, your story in its entirety. And you know, I know do you dabble in voiceover every now and then, or do you stick completely to writing?
Well, you know, being a stage actor requires obviously a lot of time and energy. And so as a performer, mostly I've just focused on that. I have like slightly, and I do mean slightly, dipped my toe into voiceover. Gina coached me a little bit during 2020, like what I call like the true pandemic times, like the darkest, most shut in times. And we even made some demos. I had not a wonderful microphone. I had an very old USB microphone of Gina's, but you know, we were trying to put something together. And you know, I've done a couple of voiceover auditions in life, but it hasn't really been my focus. And I've really mostly enjoyed writing. And actually, in that time during 2020, when Gina was working with me, I really wanted to make an animation demo. This is sort of how I discovered my writing ability for voiceover. And I wrote my demo myself.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so I used one clip from Disney that was real, that existed, of the Wicked Queen from Snow White. And then all the other clips, I just wrote them myself. So when Gina and I got on the mic to record it, she was like, wait, you wrote these? And I said, yeah. And she's like, well, how did you think of these scenarios? And I was like, I don't know. I just thought of them. Like I did one that was like a sort of like a rambunctious little girl talking to her dog, and another one that was like a boy on the playground, like a 12-year-old boy on the playground. I did like a kindly teacher. You know, I did all these different voices, and I had written it myself. So Gina was like, I want you to do some writing for me and for my clients, because, you know, these were great ideas, and they just, you know, they kind of came came into my head, like, what's a character type? And let me just make up a scenario for that person. Who do I think that character is? And then, it grew from there, not only into writing animation demos for her and for her clients, but also starting to write commercial demo as well. And now I do, video games, political, all kinds of things, medical narration, e-learning. I write all kinds of clips for Gina's clients at Positive Voices. And what she'll do is, say, okay, Mia, we have Mike Garcia. Here's a sample of his voice, or here's an existing demo that he has. And he would like to cut a new demo. I want 2 video game, clips, 2 commercial clips, and an e-learning clip. And then I'll write them based on some things that Gina has told me about the client, based partially maybe on their demos or their existing footage, and also maybe on some things that client chose themselves. Maybe there are brands that they love. They love, Starbucks, Target, and Lululemon. And they love, this certain video game and this cartoon on Nickelodeon. And I'll write them copy in the style of whatever is that brand, show, or game, or whatever it may be.
I'm just thinking in my head, how is it possible Disney has not contacted you right now to write for them? Because they need people like you. Oh my goodness. Like
you pretty
much described the entire process of what a storyteller truly is, or what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I think that our experiences in live theater have really helped me develop my writing skills quite a bit. As maybe some of your listeners may know, if they know Gina, we grew up in a theater family. Our parents directed live theater in our hometown of Shelton, Connecticut for 43 years. And we were exposed to lots of different kinds of plays and musicals, watching our parents direct. And then when we were adults, we started directing. Gina and I collaborated together as directors for many years and had a lot of fun doing that as well. So we already, Gina and I already had kind of an established professional working relationship as well as our family relationship. So,
Yes.
Working in theater and working in voiceover have really gone hand in hand. But I do think that those experiences in the theater, obviously, I think it's clear how that would develop a person's acting skills, but I sort of accidentally discovered maybe that it helped me develop my writing skills as well. I used to say that I was only an academic writer and not really a creative writer, but working in voiceover with Gina has opened up the kind of creative side of my writing. And I think drawing on character inspiration from lots of plays and musicals for many, many, many years. And I think just exposure to different things. I learn a lot from Gina because she loves video games, for instance. So she'll send me, lots of different clips of audio of video games. And I'm sort of learning the different styles because it's a great passion of hers. And also it's very important in the world of voiceover to be familiar with the different genres. So I feel like every day I develop those skills a little bit more. Naturally, my background as an English teacher also helps. I have this sort of, academic side that probably any great writer might need. But yeah, the creative part of it actually really came to life when I started working with her in voiceover a few years ago.
Now, with all of these amazing gifts that you have and the fact that you've been working with Gina, not only, as you just said, a working family established relationship, have you actually thought about writing for yourself in terms of performing and acting? Or is it more if someone else from a third party hits you with their ideas and then you do it for them? Because I know sometimes certain people have a hard time of distinguishing themselves from others.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you asked that. And I have a wonderful roommate who went to the same college as me. His name is, I'm going to name him because he's awesome. His name is Michael Whitkiss. He's also a drag queen, and his drag name is Pink Pancake, if anybody wants to check him out on Instagram. And he's just a wonderful, creative person. And we have kind of this really happy home life because he's just a very intrinsically motivated, creative guy. and he does quite a bit of writing for himself. He has a very successful web series called Interested In, which he wrote, produced, and starred in, and it has 2 seasons. And so he's very comfortable creating material and work for himself. And we often talk about how I'm maybe a little too rigid about the ways in which I seek out success as an actor. Like I'm a
Interesting.
real rule follower, so I'm not somebody who sees like, well, if the door is closed, you could go in through the window. I'm trying to, but being around people like my sister Gina or my roommate Michael helps me with that because they are naturally that way. They see like, what are the other ways that I can find some success or the other ways I can showcase my talents and abilities. So actually, I would say in the last year or so, I have become more open to creating work for myself. And Michael and I create New Year's resolutions every year, but they're not traditional New Year's resolutions. Like we're not like go to the gym every day or, wake up at 7 and start the day with the sun. Our New Year's resolutions are about, bettering ourselves as people and just sort of self-improvement overall. A lot of them have to do with our wellness and a lot of them have to do with our creativity. So this year I have one that says to create a vehicle for myself, write something to showcase myself as an actor or a singer in some way. So I don't know what that will be yet, but I would say I've only recently become kind of open to writing work for me to to actually perform in a public way.
You know what? I'm actually glad that you spoke so highly of, your friend Michael, and not only with Gina, but for yourself, but the fact that a lot of people, whenever they work with others, it is important to find that person that you can connect with, to bounce ideas from each other. And, maybe your experiences can influence them and vice versa. So then we come into these moments where I think they're called either dry spells or writer's block. How do you personally
Mm.
deal with that?
Yeah, writer's block is really challenging when Gina has a deadline, for instance, or if she has a client that is going to be recording a demo, let's say. So let's say Gina has a client and they're going to be doing a demo. She's going to be producing it and coaching them on it. And I'm going to be doing the copywriting for it. Sometimes it's like, I am meeting with that person on Friday. You've got to get these scripts to me by then. Now, Gina, my sister is wonderful and she's also very flexible. So she'll say like, if you get stuck, my sister is also a wonderful writer. I don't know if people know that. Part of the reason that I do a lot of writing for her isn't because she can't do it. It's just because it helps her manage her time so she can spend it on other
With
things.
other things,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
But Gina's also a wonderful writer and very creative. So I don't have to worry too much about writer's block because if I'm writing for a genre that I feel less like confident or excited about, or just, I don't know, maybe like I'm feeling a little bit burnt out, a lot of the time Gina will be like, well, I'll just write the one that you're struggling with. But as a personal challenge, I really like to be able to finish everything myself. So when because I do sometimes have writer's block, yeah, it manifests itself in maybe in a brand that I feel like I've exhausted. So for instance, maybe if in the last year I wrote 20 different Target commercials or Target style
Wow.
commercials, something like
Wow.
that, then I'm like, what else can I say about a brand like Target, right? Or whatever it may be, a coffee brand, like what else can be said about it? So sometimes that happens. It also happens sometimes when I'm writing people's websites. One of the services that I offer is to write copy for people's websites. And you know that, Mike, because you and I worked a little bit on
Yes,
your
we have.
website some months ago.
Absolutely.
So I've written some websites for voiceover actors, and occasionally I get writer's block because it's the same kind of thing. You say like, all right, well, I don't want to write the same thing about commercial voiceover on this person's page that I wrote on this other person's page. It's really important to me that people feel like they're getting unique copy from me, that they're getting, either a demo clip or website copy that is their own, that they can have some ownership over it and feel like it is representing them as a voice actor or whatever they do. I write for lots of different kinds of people, not just voice actors, but I do quite a bit of work with voice actors. So when I have writer's block, I mean, I guess the obvious stuff, I have to walk away. I have to walk away and come back to it. But for me, I really immerse myself in listening to existing, whatever, commercials, games, e-learning, whatever I'm writing, to listen to lots of different samples that already exist. So I'll spend a lot of time on YouTube or iSpot and just listen to commercials like over and over again until something sparks, something in my brain to say like, all right, the brand identity seems to be like this now. And I try to have everything be as current as possible too. And I've noticed a lot of changes, especially in commercial voiceover. I've noticed a lot of changes in the brand identities. So, a Starbucks commercial, for instance, in 2020 is very different than a Starbucks commercial now, right? There was that
Of
sort of like,
course.
there was sort of that COVID times. There was like a seriousness to a lot of different commercial brands. And now things are a little bit more like peppy and upbeat and, people getting back to life, so to speak. So I need to make sure that my writing aligns with the way different kinds of products have updated their brand identities. And when I have writer's block, I just have to listen until I'm kind of inspired. And actually, now thinking about the question even more, I can also relate it to my life in the theater. And I bet you Gina would agree with this. One of our tasks when we were directing theater was choreographing dance for big musicals. And I often felt, I don't know what to call it, dancer's block when I was making new dances. And in that case, I found it helpful to listen to the music on repeat and actually walk, like go walking around the neighborhood. And I had to be in motion to break my, writer's block on creating dances. I don't know why that was. I couldn't do it if I was like sitting at a desk with a notebook. I kind of had to move around and just be walking. And so, now I'm thinking, maybe if I go for a walk when I have writer's block and listen to commercials or animation copy or whatever, it might help me break that writer's block because it does happen for sure.
I just have to ask real quick. Like, I know that you've written for so many things. Have you also written for music? Have you written for like other forms of genres that absolutely needs writing? Or has it just been in the most acting, performing type of thing?
Yeah, it's mostly just been in those areas. Certainly, I mean, I've written things like I spent a little bit of time some years ago writing articles and stuff like that. I was sort of freelancing a little bit writing articles, but that all felt very academic, which it is the way my brain works. But yeah, I mean, I've been very consistently writing mostly now for either creative things or for my writing business, in which I offer lots of different services. Like I said, I do website copywriting, I tutor high school students, and I also do things like help people with their resumes and cover letters. So I do quite a bit of that. And sometimes people just literally like hire me to write their cover letter rather than help them write their cover letter. A lot of adults are kind of have some, I don't even mean this in a bad way, but have some resistance to creating their application materials for new jobs. And I think that there's not a lot of good training out there for that. So when people look up workshops or watch YouTube videos, they're kind of getting the same bland information about how to create a good resume and a good cover letter. And I guess the same could be said for, I help students, these I don't write, they have to write them themselves, but I help them with college admissions essays, graduate school candidates with their statements of purpose. So I have my hand in a lot of different kinds of writing. And sometimes I'm doing all the writing myself, and sometimes I'm coaching a client to be able to write it with some support. So not only tutoring kids, but also working with adults to develop their own writing skills.
The more that you describe your work ethic, the more you're pretty much an inspiration to many people, especially when it comes to the writing factor. Because as I said, and we're going to keep repeating this, it's so important. Now, has there ever been a point for you personally where you've just been completely burned out with writing? The old saying, too much of one thing is never a good thing, especially when it comes to our careers. Have you ever been burned out where you're like, nope. If I see one more piece of paper, if I see one more book, Gina or mom or someone, I'm going to jump off somewhere.
No, well, I don't know. I mean, yes, I guess I would say, sometimes at the end of a work week, sometimes I get to Friday and the idea of writing feels impossible, or I guess I just kind of hit like a slow spell. Like Gina and I often work on blogs. for her website, and we sort of collaborate to do those. And like if it's Friday, sometimes I'll say to her, I have got to finish this Monday. Like I just can't go on. And I can't say enough about how wonderful Gina is as a sister, but also as a boss. I always tell her I call her a very nice boss lady. She's so flexible. I mean, everything gets done, and I'm conscientious, so I think she trusts that it will get done. But never do I ever feel pressure from her. Like I never feel like she's chasing me for anything, or like if something is really truly a priority, she'll communicate that it is and say, I really need this, by this time. But she always follows it with, and if that's not possible, just let me know and I'll find a way to get it done myself, And I'm pretty much always able to do it. But I think the communication between us is sort of a special and rare thing. That's partially because we have the twin power, and partially just because I really do think for our entire adult lives, we have had a working relationship, and that's not really true of every family. It's it's true of our parents too. Our dad is a novelist and is currently working on his second novel, and I'm
Oh,
the
congrats.
editor. I'm the editor of his books, and he and I also have a great working relationship. But again, it comes from our work in the theater, where he and I directed many plays together, just as Gina and I directed many times together. We all in our family are sort of used to having both the close family relationship, that kind of, we're a typical Italian family from the Valley in Connecticut, we have that closeness, but we also know how to shift gears into professional mode. And for me, it's actually really, really fun. I love working with Gina. I was so, so happy when she brought me on board to work for Positive Voices and to be her personal assistant as a voiceover artist, because for two reasons. One, it's fun. And two, it meant that she had reached a level of success in which she needed an assistant, right? There was a time where she neither needed one, or maybe didn't feel she could afford to have one, or I don't, and now she's reached a certain level of success. That means that bringing another person on board helps her get other things done. So I get really excited when she books a gig or has, something special featured, like maybe if she's on a podcast or interviewed for an article, because I feel now like I'm part of it. I kind of like help the process along, and we have been each other's cheerleaders, well, forever, but especially in our adult life, with her pursuing voiceover and me pursuing live theater. As you were sort of indicating before, Mike, you need people in your life who will boost you up and kind of help you when things are not going very well, and celebrate you when things are going well. And I know I can always count on Gina for that. You know it because of your involvement in Positively Voiceover. Gina, her whole platform is positivity, right? It's not only the name of her business, but it's also the way that she walks through the world. She is someone who knows how to bounce back from setbacks. And so I really learn resilience from her, from being her little sister, and also from working with her professionally, because we all need to be resilient in our personal lives and in our professional lives. The two really do go hand in hand. So I love being a member of the Positive Voices team. It's been so fun.
You're essentially the Fantastic Four of voiceover. Just to think about it, with you and Gina and your dad writing a novel. Congrats to him, by the way. And your mom being a voice actress herself.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I want to circle back just a little bit on your personal journey. What got you into stage acting? What made its calling for you, or vice versa? Yeah, you know what I'm trying to
Yeah, no, it is a good question. Growing up in the theater, and for the listeners, just to really paint a picture, when Gina and I were very little girls, I mean, even to being like babies and toddlers, we were like in a playpen at rehearsal, a lot of the time. And so we were immediately immersed in, great scores of classic musicals from, literally the moment, I mean, before we were even born, like in the womb, we were hearing, this amazing musical theater music. And it wasn't just our immediate family. On my dad's side of the family, his brother, my late uncle, was a musician and his kids were involved in theater. And then on my mom's side, they were all involved in theater. My mom comes from an opera family, so she also grew up immersed in the arts. So
Wow.
we were very, very immersed in it. Music, dance, acting, right? I mean, our entire lives. And we did it. As soon as we were old enough to be on the stage, we were on the stage. And there's a great story of when I'm about 4 or maybe 3, I don't know. And Gina was old enough to be in one of my parents' shows, and I wasn't old enough yet, or they didn't feel I was old. I mean, I was like a toddler. You're not going to put a 3 or 4-year-old on the stage, I suppose. But, Gina was in the show, and this particular show was being performed in the theater at the high school where my dad taught and where Gina and I ended up going ourselves. And there
Mhm.
were these big trophy cases out in the hallway outside of the theater space. And I was like curled up under the trophy cases, like crying my eyes out, because I wanted to be in the show. And I was, my mother was like, Mia, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I was like, Gina's old enough to be in the show. How come I'm not old enough to be in the show? And I was like,
Aw.
Gina's 3 years older than you. Like, she's ready. And I was distraught. I really, really want, and then of course a year later, I think they did let me go on stage. And I always loved it. But I guess because we grew up in it, I wasn't always thinking I was going to be an actor. I think I was really like a teenager, I think, when I knew I wanted to do it professionally.
Mhm.
And at that time, I was very, very immersed in ballet. I danced at a pre-professional ballet school in Connecticut, and I was there 6 days a week. I mean, it was very, very intensive. And, I went to college for theater. But when I got out of college, I actually really struggled a lot. My first few years on the audition circuit were really challenging. I think for me, it was, I don't know what, maybe like an identity crisis or something. I think I was trying to fit myself into a box, as a lot of theater actors often feel that way. Because it is a visual medium, the way we look has a lot to do with how we're cast, how old we are, even how tall or short we are, things like that. All these things come into play. And so I really struggled in the beginning in my early 20s. And I actually left professional acting for 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, during that time, I worked at my parents' theater. I went to grad school and got my master's degree in secondary English education, and I taught in 3 public schools in the state of Connecticut. And ultimately, I kind of had like an aha or light bulb moment of some kind in 2014 where I realized although I love teaching and I love working with kids, that I didn't want to be a full-time teacher, and that really my heart was in acting. And it took me a little bit to get back to it, but I was back to it by 2015 by some lovely twists of fate. And I moved to New York in 2018 and have lived here ever since. And, theater is a field that has highs and lows, but it always feels very right to me. It's a lifestyle that I enjoy. I like that you meet new people all the time. Every time you do a new show, you're meeting a whole new group of people. It requires a lot of hustle and a lot of focus. You have to take incredible care of yourself because in order to compete, your body really needs to be in top form. Your voice,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah, hallelujah to that. Yes.
your voice needs to be healthy. And so, even in Gina's Positively voiceover group, we have a section of our Discord that, of course, Mike, about our tips of the day and our questions of the day. And a lot of times our tips of the day have to do with vocal health. What can we all be doing as voice actors or stage actors? Or we have some on camera people as well. What can we all be doing to take better care of our voices? And so, these are the kind of priorities that come along with being an actor, whatever genre you're in whatever medium you work in. So yeah, that was sort of maybe a little bit of a roundabout answer, but that's kind of how, the way that I decided to become a professional actor sort of evolved over time. It was definitely a journey.
And what a journey has been, because I can't stress enough of how I now admire you so much with your work ethic and the fact that you have an awesome family and the working relationship and everything. Like, for the listeners listening to this, if you are not moved by this and it's not making you motivated to go harder than ever before, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you.
That's so nice, Mike. Thank you. And you've been so great and so supportive of our work, and we're always excited to see you, in our classes, in our workshops, in the group. And I was so honored that you wanted me to be on your podcast. And actually, now that I think about it, I think this is the first podcast I've ever been on in my entire life.
Oh, wow. Are you serious?
Yeah, I think so.
You're not just saying that, are you?
No, I've been really looking forward to it, and I actually feel like a voice actor right now since I am in a friend's voiceover booth to do this podcast.
Oh, that's amazing.
I don't have
I
one,
am so honored now.
Yeah, well, I'm honored. Thank you so, so much. It's been really great getting to know you through voiceover and kind of get to know your work and a little bit about you and your background as well.
Absolutely. I know we only have a few minutes left, but I have to ask you this before we go. What would you say are your major goals right now to achieve? Is it writing a book? Is it, maybe writing a movie, writing a new voiceover? Like what are your main goals as of right now?
Okay, there's a few, but we'll try to narrow them down. I mean, I think professionally as a stage actor, I would like to be able to obviously be in a Broadway musical. And also I'm interested in starting to explore screen acting as well. That would be something new for me, getting more involved in film and television. When it comes to the voiceover world, I do sort of have this like quiet dream that I actually don't really talk about that much, but hey, let's do it very publicly on a podcast. I'm really interested in writing maybe a show for Disney or Nick Jr. in that style, probably like early childhood education, maybe in the style of Daniel Tiger or Bubble Guppies.
Okay.
If listeners know those shows and have kids. And then, yeah, I guess as a writer, I mean, I really enjoy my editing work with my dad. So I already feel like I'm sort of fulfilling a dream, also a dream that maybe I didn't really know I had. I love our work together in that. But I sometimes have ideas about maybe books that I might write. But I think, again, I'm interested in writing for kids, I think, because of my connection with teaching and so on and so forth and our experiences with kids over the years in theater. I really would like to create some content for children.
By you explaining everything, I really hope that you do achieve your goals. You've worked extremely hard to get to where you are now, and trust me, I, as well as many of the listeners to this right now, are pulling for you, rooting for you, and I really hope that does come true. I sincerely mean that.
That's so nice, Mike. Thank you. And like I said, you're always so supportive of our work. And, Gina and I both really appreciate that so, so much. And that's definitely not lost on us. And we know we can always count on you to be cheering us on when we're doing our work, as well as we are cheering you on too.
Absolutely. Disney.
Disney.
You got a person right here. Come on. Pick up the phone. Speaking of phone, how can people reach you if they need to acquire your services?
Okay, well, if they're looking for my writing business on Instagram, they can find me at Writing with Mia 101. Writing with Mia, like my name, Writing with Mia 101. And my website is, I think it's just writingwithmia.com. Sometimes let me just double check. Yeah. Well, that's the 101. So it's got the 101 on Instagram, but it doesn't have the 101 on my website, writingwithmia.com. That's how they can find me.
Writingwithmia.com. Folks, you've heard it here that if you need anything that has to do with writing, anything at all, if you need your story to be told and shared and written, Mia, Gina, their dad, they are there for you. The Fantastic Four of voiceover. Screw it. Trademarking that right now. I'm gonna put that on Facebook. Watch.
You need to be our new manager, Mike.
Oh, I would love that. Well, Mia, thank you so much for being part of this podcast. Once again, I've learned so much from you. And as I said, I am rooting for you to go all the way.
Thank you, Mike. It's been so much fun talking to you. And thank you again for having me.
And for the listeners, you've heard it here that when it comes to your personal journey, just remember, their journey is just beginning.